welcome back. This is Lisa Ingram, and today we are going to do our social distance pottery class number 2, where we make these awesome mushrooms. So I'm so glad that you could be here today, and whether you are a kid or an adult, I think that you'll have a blast making these. So I'm gonna set these aside, maybe where you can see them just a little bit for your inspiration, and I'm going to show you what you have in your kit. So you've got 2 blocks of clay for making the mushroom caps, and then you'll have 2 baggies of slab clay, and that is for the stem right here. So in addition to that, you'll want to have some kind of surface that you can work on. So you can take your box and open it up flat and work on top of that. A ruler is also very nice to have. A paintbrush, a pair of scissors, and something to scratch with. So I like to suggest a plastic fork, especially if you're a kid, because something pointy cannot feel good sometimes. So go ahead and pause the video and go and get your supplies. A bucket of water or bowl of water is also really helpful. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're going to get our clay out of the bag, our slab clay. And so you can unzip the bag and you can pull it straight out, or if you feel like you're gonna catch on the sides, you can use the scissors and cut your bag open. It doesn't matter. It might want to stick in there just a little bit, so be gentle as you release the clay and it will come out. Mine kind of wants to catch on the side here, so I'm going to go corner, kind of work it out. Scissors are also fine. They make it easy. Okay, so there's my clay, and this is a 4-inch by 6-inch piece of clay. So you're gonna get your 3 stems out of this piece of clay. So if you want all of your mushrooms to be the same height, you would cut 3 2-inch tall pieces of clay. If you want them to be different heights, then you could do a 1-inch, a 1.5, and a 2-inch, or a 2.5, a 1, and a 1.5. You can kind of eyeball it. You don't have to use your ruler or your measuring tape or your measuring stick, but just think about how you want it to look. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna smooth out this clay, because if you can see, it has a little bit of a canvas texture on it, and that it comes from where I use the slab roller, which is a piece of equipment in my studio to make flat pieces of clay. So instead of having to use a rolling pin, I have a machine that I roll it through and it makes flat pieces of clay for me. So anyhow, I'm just gonna take my finger and I'm gonna very gently rub out this texture. So I'm working hard not to change the shape of the piece of clay. I could press really hard and it would change the shape of the clay, but I'm just swiping the surface. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to get it a little bit more smooth than it already is. If you have something like a gift card, that's also a really good option for smoothing out your clay. So that looks pretty good to me. Give you a look at that. So today we are going to make 1 mushroom together with the spots on top, and then you can make the rest at your leisure and use your own creativity, but the same steps will apply. And this is video part 1, and then I'll do a video part 2 where we add the glaze to these. So that's going to be a really fun step as well. So I'm going to start with making a 2-inch slice of this clay here. So I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to lay it on here, I'm gonna make a little mark at 2 inches on the left side, and then I'll make a mark at 2 inches on the right side. And then I'm gonna connect those lines with my ruler, and I'm gonna make a cut all the way through. And so I didn't mention this before, but what you can use is a plastic knife. I'll put that in the comments, that a plastic knife is really good for making these cuts, or also a toothpick is really good for making these cuts. So I apologize, I forgot to add that earlier. Okay, so the next step is I'm gonna set this little piece of clay aside. This is gonna be for the other stems. And actually, I'll just show you how I'm gonna cut these. I want these to be different sizes. So I have a 2 inch. I'm gonna make a 2.5 inch. And that'll leave me with a 1.5 inch. And then I'll have 3 different sizes. So if you like the stair step look like I did with this set, those are good measurements for you. So 2 inches, 1.5, and 2.5. So I'll have 3 different size stems like that. So we'll work with the 2.5. And you can always set these back in your bag while you work. Or if you cut your bag open, you can lay it on top, and then they'll stay nice and soft for when you're ready to work with them. So we have our little rectangle right here, our first little stem. And so what I'm gonna do, and watch first before you join in, is I'm gonna take my finger and I'm gonna gently smush the edge. So I'm gonna do that on both sides. I'm only coming in about 1/3 of an inch. And I smooshed both sides. So it looks like this. It just flattened those sides out a little bit. You can go ahead and do that. And just be careful not to over smush it. And then what I'm gonna do is you'll take your toothpick or your plastic fork, whatever scratching tool you have, and you're gonna scratch where you smushed it on only one side for now. And this is called scoring. And this just opens up the surface of the clay because we're going to wrap it around and stick it to the other side. So that's what my scratching looks like. And then I'm gonna scratch on the back on the opposite side. So I'm not scratching on the same side here. I'm gonna go to the other side and scratch on the back. And again, I'm only going in about 1/3 of an inch. And my scratches are fairly shallow. And so they look like this on the back and this on the front. So now you have 2 sides that are scored. You can pause this at any time. You don't have to keep up with me, and take this at your own pace. That's my advice to you. So now I've got my paintbrush. I dipped it in my little handy water bucket that I have right here. And I'm going to wet here where I scored the clay. This clay is nice and soft, but I'm just gonna go ahead and wet both of those scored edges to make it extra sticky. And now I'm going to gently just wrap it around. I'm trying to mold the clay a little bit because if you wrap it too quickly, it might crack on you. I'm just gonna slowly wrap it around, and then I'm gonna overlap that 1/3 of a clay on both sides, because what we want to make is an even thickness all of the way around. So you don't want to have a very thin edge right there. You want it to overlap enough that you're making a good thick bond right here. And then we're going to add some pressure, gentle pressure, to press it together. So I've got one thumb on the inside and a few fingers on the outside. I'm just pressing it together. I'm not gonna worry about making these seams disappear, but I am gonna smooth it. So on the bottom, I'm gonna smooth it with my fingers. And then here, I can smooth with my thumbs a little bit. A little bit of that water squeezed out, and that's okay. You can use just a tiny bit of water to help you smooth. If you use too much, it gets muddy and it's gonna want to fall apart on you. And just be gentle with your clay. It's better to do it slowly and not collapse your clay than to try to rush and it crack and fall apart. If for some reason it does fall apart, you can get a rolling pin of your own and roll it back out and just go for a similar thickness to your slab. But it's gonna probably get a little dry on you if you start over. So just keep that in mind. It's best to work slowly so that you don't run into any issues. Okay, so there's my little 2-inch stem. And if you have any little cracks that start to form on the edge, sometimes you'll get little cracks from stretching it. You can get one little finger of water and work it around that rim right there. So this clay is brown. And the cool thing about this clay is it has speckles in it. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to use this clay for this project. But you can see this mushroom has some speckles showing through the glaze. So you can see it also has speckles on the bare clay, but they're really fun poking through on the top and on the side here. So just because the clay is brown doesn't mean that the glaze isn't going to make a big difference. So that's your stem right here. I'm gonna set it aside, and then I have my bag of clay here. I'm gonna get out one chunk of clay, and this is enough clay for 3 mushroom caps. So it's about like a little less than half a pound. And I'm just gonna pinch off 1/3 of this clay. I'm gonna put the rest back in my baggie. Because again, anytime we get clay out in the air, it's going to change on us. It's gonna lose its water slowly, but it's a lot nicer to work with nice soft clay. Since this is my medium mushroom cap, I'm going to pinch just a little bit of this off. Then I'm gonna roll it into a ball. So I wanna start with just a little ball before I make my pinch pot. And so if you did the last project where we did turtles, you know all about pinch pots. And so we're gonna shape this completely with our hands. And you'll start with a ball. Then I'm gonna get my thumb just a little bit wet in that bowl of water. And then I'm gonna find the middle spot in the bottom, right here. And I'm gonna work my thumb into it. So I'm supporting the clay with the opposite hand. Then I'm gonna work the thumb in. I don't wanna work it all the way through. I just wanna work it in a little bit until I feel like I'm getting close to all the way through, but not about to go through the top. So it's gonna look like this. It'll start to look like a mushroom top. And then I just need to rinse my fingers off there. Now I'm gonna start to pinch it. So I'm gonna pinch like this, one thumb on the inside, these fingers on the outside. I'm gonna start at the top and I'm just gonna twist and pinch. And this thins out the clay and it's gonna make it grow. Don't worry too much about the shape right now because we can change that. I like to smooth it a little bit as I go, but we'll do that. We'll do more of that towards the end. So I'm just turning and pinching, and I started here. This is the top of the mushroom cap, so I start at the top, and as I'm pinching all the way around, I'm working towards the bottom, which is this rim of the clay, the most open part. And so I'm seeing a little bit of cracking here, but lucky for us, mushrooms kind of look like that at the bottom, so we can rub some water on it to get rid of those cracks, or we can keep them. It's really up to you, but they're pretty easy to get rid of. So now I've got both thumbs in there and I'm just turning and I'm twisting. And then my outside fingers are smoothing. We're just making this little upside down bowl. So right side up, it's a bowl, upside down, it's a mushroom cap. I'm gonna get a little bit of water and rub it on here to get rid of some of these cracks, because what I wanna do now is I'm gonna flare out the rim. So my thumb is just smoothing that clay outwards. And this is opening up the bowl or the mushroom cap. So it's gonna get more of an edge, like this one. I'm not squeezing it really hard. This is all going just a little bit at a time. And every so often, it's a good idea to hold it up to your stem to see what it looks like. You don't want to make the edges razor sharp because they are going to get very hard in the kiln, and you don't want it to be very fragile or so pointy that it can scratch you or cut you when it comes out. So I'm going to go back around this rim and just smooth it. I like these little uneven edges because it really looks like the real thing. And now if you have a toothpick, I'm gonna grab one. I think I've got one over here. There's some designs you can do with toothpicks that are really cool. All right. Okay, so this is an optional design that you can do, but I'm gonna support it in my hand like this and take my little toothpick and I'm just going to make a little line here. Just like that. I'm not cutting through. I'm just slowly making a little line. I'm gonna rub the clay off. And then I'm gonna work this around to give it that underneath ridge effect. You can kind of rock it or you can pull it. But I love how intricate mushrooms are and how they do have designs underneath them. And so we can make ours look like that. I like doing these nature projects because, one, you have a lot of creativity that you can put into it, since things in nature just come in so many different shapes, so many different patterns, so many different colors. And it's just fun to celebrate spring when things are so different. Some things are still the same, like mushrooms and flowers, and the weather going from warm to cold on a daily basis, and tornadoes and thunderstorms and all that are pretty normal. So there's my little underneath design. Who knows if anyone is gonna see that. So it's gonna look like this, and I'm gonna smooth the top a little bit. Put that back aside. And now that I know I've got this design underneath, I'm being really careful not to disturb that design. And like I said, I don't have to get this perfectly smooth. Mushrooms are so unique. They've got so many different looks to them. I'm gonna leave some of it a little bit organic looking. So I'm gonna set this down, and now we're going to attach these. So you can use your toothpick, since I've got one now. I'll use that to score the top of the mushroom stem. And then, this is my little trick. I'm gonna put a little bit of water on the mushroom stem. I'm gonna score it just a little bit more. This is making it muddy. Then I'm gonna take my mushroom and I'm gonna set it in here and just kind of give it a wiggle. Mine's a little bit lopsided, so I'm gonna adjust that. Then I'm gonna pull the top back off. And I'm gonna see where that mud ended up. So I have a circle of mud in there. And if you don't, you can also, when you have this on here, just make some marks with your toothpick as to where the clay meets so that you know you score on the inside of that line. And then you'll just score here. And that's gonna make a really good place for these two things to bond to one another. Okay, so I'm gonna add my water on the inside now. I'm gonna re-score it just to be safe. And now I'm going to attach. So again, I just kind of wiggle it on there. If it looks a little lopsided, just wiggle it until you're happy, and then we can still even adjust this so that it looks very mushroomy. On my others, whoo, don't drop it like I just did. On my others, I kind of fanned out the bottom so that they wouldn't be so tipsy. This one doesn't feel tipsy. It feels pretty sturdy. So that's just an option. And then you can use your paintbrush, making sure your lid doesn't fall off, and smooth out that seam in here, just to make it nice and neat. I just love this design with the toothpick when you hold it upside down. That's so fun. Okay, it's like a little surprise. Okay, so now I've got my little extra piece of clay here. I'm going to make the spots for the top. So I'm just gonna pull off a tiny piece of clay and I'm gonna roll it in my hand. Ooh. So he's very rolly, and you can do, let's see, this one's got 7 dots. You can do all your dots at once, so they're about the same size, or you can do one at a time and then attach. So they don't take long to roll, and they don't have to all be the same size. They can be various sizes. So there's 7 of mine. And then, this is the fun part, you get to squish them. So I'm just gonna use my thumb and squish them down. You can just squish them right down on your cardboard. You don't want them too flat. They start to crack when you flatten them. But like I said, that's okay. They're just funky little mushrooms that we found outside. I'm gonna decorate my yard with mine. So then you can place them all on here, or you can stick them on and then decide where you want them to go. I don't think these are all gonna stick if I stick them all on right now. But guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna use our little toothpick. We're gonna score, and we're gonna score the mushroom. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of water. I'm not gonna have to be as careful with these because they're not supporting a mushroom cap. Then I'm just gonna tap it on down there. So there's one little dot. And then I can do another one. I think I'll put him over here. Get a little more water. That was a little too much. press it on. Okay, so there's two. He's starting to look very mushroomy. And now you don't have to do dots. This is just an example of design. So now that we're at the design part, this is where you get to get creative. So on this yellow one right here, I just did squiggles. I took the tip of a paintbrush and drug it through the clay to make little squiggles. Then on the purple one right here, I took the paintbrush and did dots. And then I painted those dots, inside the dots a different color. So there's all kinds of things you can do. I'm sure that you can come up with way more than that. If you want to, if you get little cracks like I'm getting in the dots, you can wipe them with a paintbrush and they usually go away. But I wanted to show you guys the dots because this is one design element that does involve the score and slip method. And you could just press it on and they would stay for a little while, but they would eventually fall off as the piece dries and goes through the firings. It wouldn't be strong enough to hold. So I like to tell my students, whenever you attach clay to clay, you always score and slip. So that's a really good rule of thumb. But if you're carving or dotting, there's no need for that. So I can't wait to see what designs you guys come up with. After you finish your design, you can move on to your next mushrooms. And then you're going to let these dry. So you want these to dry for a few hours before you do your glazing. So you can go ahead and watch the glaze video, part 2, just so you see what we're going to do and get an idea of it. And then after these harden up a little bit, we like to call them leather hard when they haven't changed color yet, but they are not bendable anymore. When they're at that nice leather hard stage, that's a really good time to go ahead and do your glazing. So I've got one more spot to put on. Let's put him over here right where you can see it. And then we're gonna call this guy done. And you can go on and enjoy your other mushrooms, creating your other mushrooms. And you can just rewind this video or back it up and watch any parts over that you need to. I think I squished some of my underneath design. I'm gonna have to go back and fix it. So there's my little guy. There's my little mushroom. Yeah, he's still got his underneath designs. I squished a few of them, but I can fix them. So that's what we're doing. I can't wait to see what you come up with. You can leave me comments, especially on the Facebook page or in Facebook Messenger. I see those first. So leave me comments, leave me pictures, send me questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. So good luck, have fun, and I'll see you for glazing. Bye.